this edition of Parent Points, we have a really interesting speaker. Her name is Carol Lieberman, Dr. Carol Lieberman, and she's written a book, and I'm going to read the title, Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Terror. I think with what has been going on lately in the world, from COVID to wildfires to Hurricane Ida to the anniversary of 9/11 to what's going on in Afghanistan, I think there are a lot of scary things going on in the world. And I think parents may be struggling with exactly how to talk to their children and to how to contextualize these things so that their children aren't needlessly worried by things that probably aren't ever going to affect them. So Dr. Carol Lieberman has spent her career basically helping parents understand terrorism and how it impacts their family. So here we go. Thank you for joining us today for this recording. I am so excited about our guest today. She is Dr. Carol Lieberman, and we're going to talk about her credentials in a minute. But first, I'm going to let you introduce yourself briefly, Carol.
Okay, hi, I'm Dr. Carol Lieberman. I'm a board certified psychiatrist. I'm known as America's psychiatrist. And then, in regard to things about terrorism, I have been actually since 9/11 the terrorist therapist, meaning that I have been helping families since 9/11 keep calm and carry on in the face of terror. And trying to tell people since then, well, trying to help people build resilience and telling them that terrorists have not gone away.
You know, this book didn't come out recently. What year did it come out?
Well, this book, my latest book, Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Terror, came out a couple of years ago. But my first terrorism book came out in 2006 as the anniversary edition, the 1 year anniversary edition of London's biggest terror attack, which was 7/7. And that was called Coping with Terrorism Dreams Interrupted. And so, so it's an example of how really I've been studying this, working on this. I do a podcast, a weekly podcast called The Terrorist Therapist Show. And it's so interesting. I mean, there have been a number of a significant audience, but I've noticed in the last couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, the audience has like skyrocketed. Needless to say, because we are much more now all of a sudden paying attention. Yes, terrorists haven't gone away, and we should, find out about it.
And I think this is I'm so happy you were able to come for this interview today. And I appreciate you getting up so early. I realize we are in different time zones, so thank you. But right now, we've got a lot of news coverage about Afghanistan, of course, and then we're up on the anniversary of 9/11. So this is kind of a point where the news broadcasts and the media, we're all going to be focusing on terrorism. So it's a really good time for parents to have a handle on how to talk to their kids about this.
Yes, I mean, it's really a double whammy. The 20th anniversary of 9/11 is a heavy enough or significant enough time, and parents would have been, or should have been in any case, planning on talking to their kids about 9/11, what it was, and all of the information, and so that even so kids who weren't born yet could uh, could understand it, and the significance of it. A lot of times parents will say, "Well, why do I have to?" Well, now with Afghanistan, not necessarily so much. They do know why they have to talk to them about terrorism, but before Afghanistan, the horrible exit. Um, Parents would sometimes say, "Well, why do I have to talk to my kids about terrorism? Because that happened a long time ago, and I don't want to worry them. I don't know how to talk to them about it. Uh, they don't need to know." Well, clearly now, I'm sure most parents realize that they do need to know for a number of reasons. First of all, there's the saying, "He who forgets history is doomed to repeat it," and never was that shown to be as true as now, when with what happened in Afghanistan, the awful pullout. Um, and so, and the ramifications of that, it's not just the fact that we've left Americans behind and the troops have been killed and all of that, but there are ramifications even beyond that. And so, yes, kids need to know what a terrorist is. Um, I have in my book, for example, the book is has two parts. The first half is for parents and teachers, grown-ups, how to talk to kids about terrorism, what to look for, the symptoms in kids, how to build resilience, how to what to do with them to help them feel calmer and better about what's going on. But then the second part is a picture book for kids. And so, for example, the first one of the first pictures is, what is a terrorist? A terrorist is like a big bully on the playground. So really, this kind of brings to, it talks about 9/11, it talks about the shoe bomber, the underwear bomber, but in terms kind of like big bully on the playground, in terms that certainly tells the truth, but in bite-sized pieces, terrorism light.
This makes so much sense, and I commend you on your book. It is wonderful, that first part of, for the teachers and the parents, that by itself is a magnificent piece of work, and could be published completely independently. So parents and teachers definitely seek out this book and read that, because it is good information for those of us who need to be the people, conveying the information and reassuring the children. The picture book part is highly interactive. You've got prompts in there for discussions and to ask kids what they think and what they feel. And that's really also very good.
Thank you so much. Yes, I have a section about that. How do you feel? And that is the basic things. Parents don't have to be psychiatrists or political scientists or anything to talk to kids about terrorism. The basic thing is to get them to express their feelings at any stage, whatever is going on in regard to terrorism in the world, or if nothing was going on. Um, so I have pages where they should draw what they think a terrorist looks like, pages of emojis, to point. For the very youngest kids, they can at least point to an emoji and as a way of expressing how they're feeling. But there are a lot of things parents can and teachers can do to get kids to express their feelings. The four main feelings that kids have in regard to terrorism, or we could extend it, to other traumas in the world, whether it's COVID or natural disasters. Um, so it's scared, sad, mad, and bad. And bad isn't that they're being bad. It's like they have a mishmash of feelings and they can't really describe it in any better way than I feel bad. So scared, of course, you can understand that, and mad, mad about what terrorists are doing or what a hurricane is doing. Scared, bad, and sad. And sad, of course, we're sad about people dying, sad about trees falling down, all those kinds of things. So that's sort of the basic thing, because if kids aren't encouraged, don't wait for them to tell you I'm feeling scared or I'm feeling most kids will not just come out and say these things. You have to encourage them to do it, whether it's by having them draw, the simplest thing, having them draw a picture, just giving them crayons and paper, and then come over and watch what they've drawn. And if they're drawing pictures of rain or pictures of storm clouds or black or crossing at, well, if they're drawing pictures of rain or storm clouds and things that are looking sad, obviously that's telling you that they're sad. If they're scratching, if they draw a picture and then they scratch it out with like a dark crayon, that's, you can tell they're feeling mad. And more details can give you more ideas, and you can ask them, of course, about what is that and how did you, what made you draw that, or how did you feel about that, what you drew. Or then you can use puppets. There are all of these different kinds of tools or to get parents to elicit feelings from kids. And the reason why that's so important is because if you don't, and you don't invite them to, you don't convey the feeling that they're always, actually in a perfect world, always invited to talk to you about their feelings about anything, not just terrorism. But if you don't do that, then they stuff all these feelings down. And then as they grow up, this becomes, it starts to show psychological symptoms. I mean, it's not good. Everybody knows it's not good to stuff, even when you're an adult, it's not good to stuff all these feelings down, because then they come out in ways that are not really healthy.
Well, while you're talking about this interactive part of the book and talking to the children, something that really comes to my mind is how good I feel when something's happened and I get to vent to a friend or vent to my husband. It's just, my husband is not going to fix what happened at work today, but I can just get it out. And then it's like, it's more in perspective. I'm calmer about it, but there was just something good about getting it out. And so basically, the activities in your books, that's because your kid can't go meet a friend at Starbucks. I mean, adults do this behavior. Kids just need the prompts.
Yes, yes, yes. That's a very good point. Um, it's true. We can all identify with that. We feel so much better, even if we're telling somebody who can't really do anything about it, but who can commiserate with you or can just show that they understand how you're feeling. That is so reassuring. It makes you feel so much lighter once you've done.
And so this is just doing that for kids. I love that. Now, we've jumped straight into it with this interview. I wanted to get some of these main points in the front because sometimes people get busy or the doorbell rings and they have to go to other things. But your book is Lions and Tigers and Terrorists, Oh My. And it is how to protect your child in a time of terror. And we're going to have the web address to your website showing here. Parents can order this from you and they'll get an autographed copy, right?
Yes, they can find it on Amazon, of course, but from my website, terroristtherapist.com, they can get an autographed copy.
Well, I think that's significant. And let's be honest, when you sell directly, it's better for you. And of course, Mississippians are really for small businesses and local businesses. So you're basically a cottage industry unto yourself. So we want to support you.
Thank you.
I will want to point out that it is available in Kindle. Now, the Kindle edition is full color, correct?
Oh, right. Yes, um, I believe so. I actually, the publisher put that up, and I am not sure, but I believe so.
I'm sure it is. And I think with these beautiful illustrations, if you were reading this on a tablet, a Kindle Fire or a tablet, the pictures would be colorful and vibrant as you scrolled through the book. So I think it could be something you could sit down with your child with and go through. So, I'm all for ebooks, have my own Kindle, but the print book is something you could touch and feel, and that makes sense. But the Kindle Fire or the ebook version, the readers won't lose anything out by you going that route. So
No,
definitely
so.
get your hands on this. Carol, I wanted to read a little bit about your credentials because they are so impressive. So you appear on TV shows from Oprah, Fox News, CNN, HLN, Today Show, Good Morning America, Entertainment Tonight, Access Hollywood, and more. So you hobnob with a lot of different interesting people.
Yes. It was my, when I went to medical school, well, first of all, I decided to be a doctor when I was 8 years old, and I read a book about the first American female doctor. And then when I was a teenager, I read Freud's interpretation of dreams, and that made me, I connected with it right away. And so when I went to medical school, it was with the intention of becoming a psychiatrist. And then even more than that, it was with the intention of trying to help people more than I could ever see, 24/7 in my office, one-on-one. And so it's always been my intention to share psychological insights through the media, through radio and television and, print, and just to reach a larger number of people.
And I think parents are especially open to information that will help them raise happy, resilient, successful children.
Yeah.
I found that in publishing a parenting magazine for these 30 years, parents really pay attention to the feature articles. And they like the ones that I call refrigerator journalism, where it's like an article with 7 tips you can do tonight at dinner or whatever,
Mhm.
actionable information. And this book is packed full of that. Just having gone through Hurricane Ida here in Mississippi, um, we've got some cases where kids have been traumatized by that. We've got Afghanistan, the 9/11 anniversary is coming up. There's wildfires out west. Global warming is on the news every night. There's a lot of concerning things that could really impact kids' understanding of the world. And I want to ask you about this. We're in a 24/7 media cycle. And I'm really glad that you have made it your career to get your information out through the same media. That's brilliant. But talk a little bit about maybe media overdose when it comes to this sort of thing.
Yes. Um, this is one of the things that parents need to pay attention to, even if kids are just walking through the living room, or you're watching, some kind of a program, sort of a benign program, and then the news comes on and they see just even just a little bit of it. First of all, it's very hard for them to understand. It's a lot of the things are hard for adults to understand. They're so overwhelming, but especially for kids. And when they see these little glimpses here and there of all of the different things, of the things you just mentioned, for example, it makes them feel like it's a very scary world out there, and makes them feel helpless, makes them feel, why should I try to be, whatever they want to be, a teacher, an airplane pilot, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, um, when I'd have to go out in the world and it's so scary and there are all these things coming to get me, you know. So you do have to be careful. Even teenagers, it's not just the young kids, because the teenagers are even more likely in a different way to not ask parents to, they want to think that they know it all, so they don't want to ask questions about things. But it's really important to talk about all of these things. Um, I read a statistic the other day about how, because it was about driver's ed schools, and about how there are fewer teenagers going to driver's ed, and the reason is because they don't want to buy a car, they don't want to drive. Now that is shocking, compared to past generations. And I mean, not that I am trying to promote teenage driving. Believe me, I didn't let my daughter drive when she was a teenager. So it's not that, but it's just that it shows, they say, what do I need a car for? I'm not going to go anywhere. That is really, really a very unfortunate reaction to what is going on in the world today. People, they want to hide in their parents' basement of all ages. Um, and we need, because of all these things in the world, we need people to educate themselves better, and to, as I was saying, build up resilience more, and to feel strong, feel that they want to go out and try to change things. I mean, you might not, um, some things it's harder to change than others, but there's always something you can do, whether it's to volunteer at a homeless shelter, or do something for climate change, or, one thing, collect bottles, um, or try to vote, join, volunteer for the political party that you want. There are a million things that you can do, and so kids need to be encouraged to go out and do these things, not to hide in the basement and watch violent video games.
That makes so much sense. And as you were talking, I kind of related it to my own growing up period. The Cold War was going on. I had my master's, but before the wall fell, the Berlin Wall. So I grew up in an era where everybody had nuclear weapons. We had this nuclear arms race going on, and we were one bomb away from annihilation. And I remember consciously thinking at times, why does this even matter when we're all going to die from nuclear fallout, if not instantly when the bomb goes? And I think
Yes.
back on that and I'm kind of laughing at it, but at the time that was very real for me because arms race was on the news every night. And, Ronald Reagan had the Star Wars thing going on. It was a big deal. This whole concept of nuclear annihilation was just a step away. And
Yeah.
with terrorism in the forefront of the news, and of course it's all over the world, not just the Middle East or Afghanistan, and then wildfires and hurricanes, a kid could easily look at that and think and be very discouraged and think, what does whatever I think matter when all of this is going on and eventually I'm going to suffer some sort of fate from it. So I really like your idea of getting kids to do something. To if they, let's say they're worried about homeless people, go to the shelter and sort clothes on a Saturday. Or if they're worried about the environment, start a recycling program. I think these are really good ideas because it gives kids mastery and it
Yeah.
helps them build resilience.
Yes, exactly. They feel like they're contributing. They could say, what if I go and, even collecting clothes, going around the neighborhood and collecting clothes to bring to the homeless shelter. And a kid could think, well, okay, I bring a whole bunch of clothes. How is that going to change the problem of all these thousands of people who are homeless? But if everybody did, one little thing, it would make a big difference. Um, a lot of kids, well, a lot of adults for that matter, but kids and teenagers are feeling exactly what you said. And some of them are getting so discouraged. Like, what is the point? Not just of doing these different things to try to help the world, but what is the point um, of living in this world? There is an increase, of course, in suicidality, suicidal thoughts. Um, and there's also an increase in people thinking, well, since the world is going to end tomorrow, I might as well go out and, be promiscuous or get drunk or, start using drugs so I can hide from all of this. A lot of people are really thinking like that. And I think it's going to get worse in the next months because of what happened in Afghanistan, some of the ramifications are going to be. I mean, it really doesn't take the terrorist therapist to point this out necessarily. I think people aren't necessarily talking about it because it's scary, but we know that the one likely ramification is that there are going to be more terror attacks in the United States because for a number of reasons, including that the terrorists, not only the Taliban, but ISIS and Al Qaeda. Al Qaeda, remember, are the people who brought us 9/11. They are now in Afghanistan. I mean, they're all over the world, including in America, FYI. But I mean, even before what happened in Afghanistan, they have been in America, little camps of them, little cells. Um, but now with all of these different terror groups being able to be together in Afghanistan in a safe place to hatch plans. I mean, they've been hatching plans. That's another thing that people we've all been concentrating on COVID for the last year and a half or so, and haven't been thinking about terrorists because really terrorists haven't been attacking in the US in any significant kind of way. Terrorist attacks have been foiled, but we haven't really been hearing about that. But nothing super significant. But that's because people weren't out on the streets. In the places where there were lockdowns, and just in general, people have been tending to stay at home more, even when there weren't lockdowns, to keep themselves safe. So that's why there haven't been attacks, because because they like to get a lot of people uh, killed and injured in their attacks, and there weren't a lot of people at concerts or in the places that they usually go. But they have been recruiting during all this time, and more people have been on the internet during this COVID time. And so they have been getting recruits and they have been plotting. And for example, um, the Al Qaeda has a magazine called Inspire, and meaning inspiring people to become lone wolves or to join their organization. And they just put out, they hadn't put out a magazine since 2017, but they just put one out again in June. And I mean, they were still doing propaganda on the internet, but as far as the magazine, they didn't put it out until this past June. And they had on the cover the man who, Al Issa, who, um, the man who perpetrated the attack in Colorado, you know, the mass shooting in Colorado. And he was, I mean, I had said that at the time. The mainstream media did not really have this, didn't want to link him to terrorists. And in fact, what they did say was that he was bullied in school for his last name and for, you know, being Muslim and so on. But and of course that is why his anger increased and why he became a terrorist sympathizer. But in fact, he made posts on the internet and so on, and he was an Al Qaeda sympathizer. And I mean, that has come out more, and they have him on their cover. He is a hero. They are trying to show people, be like this man who did this mass shooting in Colorado. So that was going on before, you know, the
Yeah.
pullout in Afghanistan. So there are going to be more attacks, and it's all the more important for us to become more resilient. Our children, of course, and ourselves. Our children can only be as resilient as we ourselves are.
Mhm.
So we need to work on that, being psychologically resilient and physically resilient.
This sounds really interesting, and this also makes me think of as parents, when you have older children who have these smart devices and are spending a lot of time on the internet, you really need to be clued into what your child's looking at, what they're reading, because you're right. These groups are recruiting, and they're targeting our disaffected youth and
Yes.
insecure girls and young boys
Yes.
who
Isn't that
haven't found their place yet.
Yes, isn't that interesting? I mean, it's sad, but
Mhm.
it's an interesting phenomenon about how girls, and again, this isn't new, this has been happening for quite some time. Um, I mean, at least since 9/11, um, that girls who, uh, especially teen girls who aren't very popular, who don't have a boyfriend, um, and who feel, you know, ugly and feel like, oh, I'll never have a boyfriend or a husband, nobody like loves me, that, you know, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not this or not that. And they are so easily seduced. I mean, we know from the girls who have gone to the
Mhm.
Middle East, because they've gotten seduced by cute terrorists on the internet who tell them how gorgeous they are, how sweet they are, how you know, what a great wife they would make. And we've seen them going over to the Middle East to marry these men, and then they get the shock of their lives. You know, yes, he might have seemed cute on the internet, but he's not so cute in person. And you know, they are used as baby making machines, and they are in, of course, really dangerous um,
Yeah.
places. And they end up, you know, their children often die because of the horrible circumstances. And so, you know, their fantasy of
Yeah.
this being their prince gets blown away, literally blown away soon
Mhm.
after.
And I think that's just more all the reason to really have these kind of conversations with your kids, starting with the age group for this book, Lions and Tigers and Terroristomai, and then going all the way through, you know, even into their college. Keep talking about these things. Before we break, and I'll let you go, I want to give some action points to our parents. So, one of the first things I'm going to say is this book, Lions and Tigers and Terrorist Oh My, How to Protect Your Child in a Time of Terror. That's available at the website www.terroristtherapist.com, and we'll get that up on the screen for you. Um, I urge parents to buy that book, even if their kids are maybe too old for the little activity pages. The information in the front is priceless. So definitely get that. I think that's an action point. Would you agree that maybe being very mindful of how much news, especially television graphic news, your child is exposed to?
Yes, absolutely. On also though, you can use the something on the news, if they happen to see it. Well, we know that they're seeing all these things. If you're not seeing them see it, we know they are seeing it, maybe at a friend's house or on the internet. So you can't assume, but you should try to be careful, at least limit it where you can. Um, but you can also use some of these things as a talking off point, as a way to get into the conversation about terrorism or about anything else that is scary in the world.
Okay, so we've got two action points. This is a random one I'm going to throw out there, but it sounds really crazy. But maybe do a little bit of geography lesson with this. The wildfires are out west. They're not two
Near
counties
me.
away.
Near me.
Oh, that's right, they're near you. Well, we're having a very wet summer. I hate to tell you. So we're having my yard's flash flooded twice this summer. So I would love to send you that liquid. Um, so I think, and then like this sounds crazy, but if something happens in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, we have a Philadelphia, Mississippi. Kids may not know the difference. So I think really letting them know that while there are terrorists and while hurricanes happen and wildfires and all these natural disasters, let them know the geography of that. And let them know that, Hurricane Ida is now gone and we just have some wet, gloomy weather. But the storm is past. It's not going to come back tonight. It's gone. And just let kids know that the locality of these things isn't necessarily their backyard. Because I remember confusion about that sometimes as a child.
Yes. Even Afghanistan, I'm sure a lot of kids, what's best, I mean, of course you can show people kids on a map on the internet, but it's even also good and even better to buy a globe. Every family should have a globe in their house, even if it's small and not necessarily expensive, but it's easier to see where things are on the globe, like where Afghanistan is. So yes, that's very important.
I think another action point might be to reassure kids of the odds of these things. Like, I know there's always a huge fear of stranger danger, but most abducted kids are abducted by a friend or family member.
Yes,
Their
yes.
total stranger abductions are relatively rare.
Yes, that reminds me of one of the pages that I have in the book is why shouldn't you be scared of a terrorist attack happening to you? There is more chance of you getting run over in the street if you don't look both ways always than being hurt in a terrorist attack. There are many other everyday accidents that are more likely to happen than terrorist attacks, like falling off your bicycle or skateboard or getting hit in the head with a basketball. So yes, putting it in perspective, absolutely.
Okay, that's I love that analogy, and that's brilliant because I do think we can really key up kids as far as the anxiety goes, and perspective really helps. What else would you add to this list of action points?
Well, and I give these 10 things to do to stay safe from a terrorist, basically, which are to build resilience. And they go from keeping yourself physically fit, such as eating all healthy foods and getting enough sleep and getting enough exercise, like by watching here, like by walking your dog. I don't know how well you can see these things, but um,
All of these things are very empowering for kids because these are things they can master.
paying attention in school, doing your homework every day, and so on to learn a lot, so that you can go on and have a job that will help keep our country strong. This one with the movie theater, I talk about not watching violent entertainment, but watching positive kinds of entertainment instead, positive stories, and spreading love. I love spreading love. Kids can spot terrorists too. You may have seen signs that read, if you see something, say something. I go into that. Most importantly, don't let your fears about terrorists stop you from having fun and doing the usual things. Oh, I skipped one that's really, well, there are 10 of them, so I skipped a bunch, but this is one that I particularly like. It's a little girl and she says, I'm a Muslim and I'm not a terrorist. Islamophobia, we also, this is going to be coming up more as terrorism is coming up more. We need to teach kids not to be scared or mean to kids who don't look like you, particularly kids who are Muslim, or to people who are Muslim, um, because not all Muslims are terrorists, certainly, and not all terrorists are Muslims. So we do need to include that as well. And then I talk about a safety plan, writing down telephone numbers and addresses where you would go if there was an attack. And for that matter, it could be where you would go if you were in school and the hurricane came to your school. It could be any kind of scary thing. You have to have a plan with your family where you would meet, who you would call, even taking into consideration that cell phones might be down. You have to have plan A and plan B.
Carol, I just can't thank you enough for taking on this mission. I don't know many people who would want to be known as a terrorist therapist, but sadly, we need this. And so thank you for what you're doing.
You're very welcome. Let me just mention something, because I was mentioning that I live in California. I'm born and bred in New York. And when 9/11 happened, even though I was in California already, my heart was and is still in New York. So when 9/11 happened, and of course it attacked Washington, D.C., and of course the plane that landed in Pennsylvania was also going to Washington, D.C. I know it wasn't just New York, but it wounded me. When the Twin Towers came down, it was a personal wound. And that is why I decided that I would devote a significant part of my life and my work and my career to helping people cope with terrorism, the memories of 9/11 and the ongoing threat of terrorism.
Well, I think this is just one example of how sometimes good things do come out of tragedies. So thank you for your contribution to helping us raise happy, resilient kids.
Thank you.